I was 29 years old when this happened, living alone for the first time in my life. I had just moved into a ground floor flat in a quiet suburb just outside Bristol. It was a nice area. Families, dog walkers, that kind of place. I thought it was safe. Most people do, until they don't. My name is Priya Nair, and what I'm about to describe happened across 3 separate nights over the course of 1 week in November. The first night, I thought nothing of it. I was in bed around 11 p.m, half reading, when I heard what I thought was a cat jumping onto the ledge outside my bedroom window. My window was one of the older sash styles, wooden frame, a latch that didn't always catch properly. I heard the sound of something pressing on the glass. Gentle, I told myself, cat. I turned off the lamp and went to sleep. The second night, I couldn't explain it away so easily. I was in the kitchen, washing up after a late dinner, when I saw it. My kitchen window faces the narrow side passage between my building and the garden wall. There's a motion sensor light out there. The landlord had it installed. It was on. Standing in the beam of that light, completely still, was a man. He was tall. He was wearing a dark jacket with the hood up, and he was facing my window directly, hands at his sides, not moving. Just standing there in the light, looking at my kitchen window. The moment I registered what I was seeing, I stepped back from the sink. My back hit the counter behind me. I stood there frozen for what felt like a full minute, watching him, waiting for him to move. He didn't. He just stood there, face obscured by the hood, perfectly still. I reached slowly for my phone without looking away from the window, and I called my neighbor upstairs, a retired man named Gerald who I'd exchanged numbers with when I moved in. He came down, knocked on my door, and when I showed him the window, the passage was empty. The light had gone off. Gerald looked around outside. Nothing. He told me it was probably a drunk who had wandered in and got confused. I thanked him and locked every window and door I had. The third night was the night it became something I will never stop thinking about. It was a Friday, around 2 a.m. I hadn't slept well all week, and I'd finally drifted off on the sofa with the television on. I woke to the sound of my front door handle being tried. Not the knock of a visitor, the deliberate testing rotation of the handle by someone who wanted to know if it was locked. It turned, held, released, turned again. I grabbed my phone and texted Gerald. I was too afraid to speak. He came down immediately and opened his door to the hallway. He told me later that he saw the shadow of 2 feet under my door, someone standing directly outside in the communal hallway, close enough to touch the door. When Gerald opened his own door and stepped out, the person ran. Gerald gave a description to the police. Tall male, dark hood, trainers. They reviewed the building's entry camera. The footage showed the same man had entered the building on all 3 nights, using what appeared to be a copied key card to bypass the communal entrance. He had a key. He had made himself one. He had been coming in for 3 nights, testing my flat, learning my routine, waiting for a moment. The police identified him 3 weeks later. He had done this to 2 other women in 2 other buildings in the same suburb. He had never been caught in the act. He had, as far as investigators could determine, simply been building up to something. What that something was, nobody said explicitly, but the look on the officer's face when I asked told me everything I needed to know. I was out of that flat within the month. I have a deadbolt now, and after that incident, I never went back there again. My name is Dale Richwood. I'm 44 years old, and I have been a licensed home inspector for over 19 years. In that time, I have walked through hundreds of vacant properties, foreclosures, estates, abandoned houses, condemned buildings. I have seen things that were unsettling in the way that old, empty places can be. Rot and ruin and the strange sadness of spaces left behind. But only once, only one time in 19 years, did I walk into a vacant house and realize it was not vacant at all. The property was a large Victorian-style house in a small town in upstate New York. 3 stories, a wraparound porch, original windows, an attic that ran the full length of the building. It had been sitting empty for going on 4 years following a contested estate dispute. The bank had finally taken possession and hired my firm to conduct a full inspection before listing it. I arrived at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday in late October. Clear day, cold but bright. I had my kit, my clipboard, my camera. Standard procedure: start at the exterior, work your way in, top to bottom. The front door opened with the lockbox key without issue. The house smelled the way they all do: stale air, old plaster, the faint sweetness of wood beginning to give. I noted the entry foyer, the condition of the original staircase, the state of the plaster walls. Everything was consistent with a house that had been closed for 4 years. I was on the 2nd floor, photographing a ceiling crack in what had been a master bedroom when I heard the sound. Footsteps above me on the 3rd floor. I went still. I stood there with my camera half raised and listened. They were slow, methodical footsteps, the kind of sound a person makes when they are trying to move quietly and not quite managing it. Across the room. Stop. Back again. Stop. I told myself it was settling. Old houses make noise. The temperature change as the sun hit the roof could cause beams to shift. I told myself all of that. Then something was dragged. A deliberate heavy drag, like a piece of furniture being moved a short distance. One long scrape and then silence. Furniture doesn't move itself. I backed out of the bedroom into the hallway. I looked up the staircase to the 3rd floor. The door at the top of the stairs was closed. It had been open when I arrived. I was almost certain of it. I could not be completely certain because I had not gone up there yet, but I had a strong gut-level conviction the door had been standing open when I walked past it 20 minutes ago. I called out. I identified myself, Home Inspector here on behalf of the bank. I said if anyone was in the building, they needed to come out. My voice was steadier than I felt. Nothing. I took out my phone and called the police non-emergency line. I explained the situation. The dispatcher sent a patrol car as a precaution. While I waited outside on the porch, I watched the windows. And on the 3rd floor, the far left window, tucked under the eave, I saw a curtain move, not blown by a draft. Pulled, deliberately pulled to one side and released. There was someone up there watching me leave. The officers who responded did a full sweep of the building. In the attic, accessible through a hatch in the 3rd floor ceiling, they found evidence of extended occupation. A sleeping bag, several canned food tins, a battery-powered lantern, a bucket, and, nailed over the single attic window, a heavy blanket to block the light. Whoever had been living up there had been doing so carefully, quietly, and for some time, possibly for months. They had learned the schedule of the occasional drive-by checks the bank sent. They had learned when the building was approached and when it wasn't. But they had not planned for an inspection, and when they heard me arrive, they retreated upward and then couldn't get out because I was in the building for over an hour. The officers found where they had escaped. A 3rd floor bathroom window, painted shut for years, had been recently forced open. There were fresh scrapes on the sill and a drain pipe on the exterior wall that someone had used to climb down. By the time the officers checked it, whoever had been living in that attic was gone. They were never found. We never learned who they were or how long they had been there. I completed the inspection 2 days later, with 2 colleagues present. I have never gone back to a vacant property alone again. My name is Marcus Ellery, and I am 31 years old. I grew up in a small farming town in eastern Kentucky, and my grandmother passed away in the spring of 2019. She left me her house. A 2-story wooden farmhouse built sometime in the 1940s Sitting alone on about 12 acres of flat land surrounded by old cornfields on 3 sides and a thick tree line on the 4th sides. There was no nearby neighbor. The closest gas station was 11 miles away. I wasn't planning to live there immediately. I drove up one Thursday evening just to check the property, make a list of repairs, and leave by morning. Simple. One night. That was the plan. I arrived around 8 p.m. The power was still on. My grandmother's bill had been set to auto-pay, and the place smelled like old wood and lavender. Her furniture was still there. Her reading glasses were still folded on the kitchen table. It felt wrong to be there without her, but not scary. Not yet. I did a walkthrough, checked the windows, the plumbing, the roof leaks. Everything seemed manageable. I ate a sandwich I'd brought, watched something on my phone, and fell asleep on the couch around midnight. I woke up at 2:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I looked at my phone the moment my eyes opened. I didn't wake up gradually. I woke up the way you do when something pulls you out of sleep. Fast, alert, heart already pounding. The house was completely silent. And then I heard it. Breathing. From inside the wall directly behind the couch I was lying on. Slow, deliberate breathing. In and out. In and out. Like someone pressed against the other side of the drywall, their mouth inches from the surface, breathing with great patience. I didn't move. I couldn't. My whole body locked up. I told myself it was an animal, a possum in the crawl space. Raccoons get into old houses all the time. I repeated that to myself like a prayer. Then the breathing stopped, and someone knocked. 3 slow knocks on my front door. I was off that couch and across the room before I even processed what I was doing. I grabbed my keys from the kitchen counter and I stood in the center of the room, shaking, staring at the door. Nothing happened for about 30 seconds. Then the back door handle moved, not violently, slowly, like someone testing it. The handle rotated down, held for a moment, and came back up. The door was locked. I had checked it before sleeping, and whoever was on the other side seemed to know that because they didn't force it. They just tried it. I called 911. I told them there was someone on my property trying to get inside. The dispatcher told me an officer would be there in approximately 25 minutes. 25 minutes. I was alone in a house in the middle of a field with something outside that had already been inside the property. I moved to the hallway, the most central part of the house, and crouched with my back against the wall so nothing could come at me from behind. I watched both ends of the hallway. I didn't speak. I barely breathed. 10 minutes passed. Then I heard footsteps on the porch, walking the full length of the front porch from left to right. They stopped at the front window. I heard the screen creak as pressure was applied to it from outside. And then a voice, low, almost conversational, speaking right through the glass, saying, "I know you're in there. I've been watching the lights." I don't have words to describe what that did to me. It wasn't a threat. It was calm. That calmness was the worst part. Whoever this was, they were not afraid. They were not panicked. They were simply informing me. I screamed at them that I had called the police. I screamed it so loud my voice cracked. The footsteps retreated from the window. I heard them cross the porch again, go down the front steps, and disappear into the gravel of the driveway. The officer arrived 22 minutes later. He searched the property with a flashlight and a partner who arrived shortly after. They found boot prints in the mud along the back of the house. They found where someone had been standing outside the back window for what the officer said looked like a while. The grass was pressed flat in a wide stance, the way it looks when someone stands somewhere long enough to leave a mark. They found something else too. The crawl space vent on the south side of the house had been removed from the outside and set neatly against the foundation wall. Someone had opened it. Whether they had been inside the crawl space, inside the walls, the officer couldn't confirm. But the vent had not been like that when I arrived. I was certain of it. They never found who it was, and no one was ever charged. I want to make something clear before I go any further. I am not a superstitious man. I am a former Marine officer with 2 tours experience overseas. I have slept in ditches in the rain, and I don't spook easily. What happened to me during the first week I spent alone in that house has nothing to do with ghosts. I wish it did. Ghosts would have been better. The property had been empty for 4 years since my grandfather died. The main house was a 2-story antebellum structure, wide verandas, original pine floors, 12-foot ceilings. Beautiful in the way that old things can be beautiful when they're falling apart slowly. The estate sat on 11 acres of land that backed up against the Tunica Hills. Dense, dark forest that started about 100 feet behind the rear fence and went on for miles with nothing in it. I drove down from Memphis with a truck full of tools and the intention of doing a first assessment before deciding whether to restore the house or sell the land. I planned to stay 1 week, just me and the house and the August heat. What I did not plan for was the cellar. My grandfather had never mentioned a cellar. The estate documents listed none. But on my second day there, pulling up a section of rotted flooring in the back hallway, I found a trapdoor. Heavy wood, iron ring pull, set flush into the subfloor. Old, very old. The iron was rusted, but the hinges had been oiled. Recently oiled. I didn't open it that day. I told myself I'd look at it in the morning, in full daylight. I spent the evening making a list of repairs, ate a cold dinner, and went to sleep in the front bedroom on a cot I'd brought. I woke up at exactly 3 a.m. in the morning. The swamp insects outside, the constant wall of crickets and frogs that had been going since I arrived, had gone completely silent. Anyone who has spent time in Louisiana bayou country knows what that silence means. It means something large has moved close to the property, something that scared everything else into silence. I lay still and listened. I heard something below me, beneath the pine floorboards. 3 slow knocks, like something that had been waiting down there a long time and had decided tonight to announce itself. The knocking stopped after about 2 minutes, then silence again. And from the back hallway, the hall where I had found the trapdoor, I heard the unmistakable creak of that trapdoor being lifted from below. I was out of the bedroom and into the hallway before I even processed the decision. I had a flashlight in one hand and my pistol in the other hand, and I swept the beam down the corridor. The trapdoor was open, standing straight up on its hinges, and in the beam of my flashlight, just disappearing back below the floor line, a hand. A man's hand, letting go of the iron ring, pulling back down into the dark. They must have heard me coming. I shouted. I identified myself. I told them I was armed and that I had called the police. That last part was a lie. My phone had no signal out there, but I said it loud and I said it with everything I had. I did not go down. I am a former Marine officer and I did not go down into that dark hole alone, and I will not apologize for that. You do not go into unknown underground spaces after unknown people in the middle of the night. You just don't. I let the trapdoor fall shut. I dragged a cast iron radiator from the hallway and sat it directly on top of the trapdoor. Then I sat in the hallway with my back against the wall, facing both the trapdoor and the back door until sunrise. 4.5 hours. I did not sleep. Nothing moved, nothing knocked, nothing came up. At dawn, I drove to the nearest town, 14 miles, and came back with 2 sheriff's deputies. They moved the radiator and went down into the cellar with rifles and torches while I waited at the top. What they found down there changed the entire shape of my life. Someone had been living in that cellar. For what the deputies estimated, based on the food supply and the calendar markings, was close to 8 months. 8 months. In the ground. Beneath a house they had no right to be in. But here is the part that hasn't left me. At the far end of one of the tunnel extensions, the deputies found where the cellar connected to the outside. a collapsed section of the old foundation that opened onto the crawl space under the rear porch, and from there to the outside. That was how they came and went, for months. And beside that exit point, they found something set against the wall, a wooden crate. Inside the crate were items, small items that had clearly been collected from the house above. A photograph from my grandfather's study, a pocket watch that had sat on the mantelpiece for years.
And here is what the lead deputy said to me, quietly, after he came back up from the cellar. He said it in a matter-of-fact tone that somehow made it worse. "Mr. Beaumont, there are 2 mattresses down there. There had been 2 of them, living underground, beneath your grandfather's house for 8 months, moving through the rooms above, at night, taking things, learning the house. And when I arrived, a stranger who disrupted their routine. One of them had knocked on the floor of my bedroom in the dark to test whether I would come out. They were never positively identified. 2 persons of interest were located in the surrounding parish 3 weeks later, but neither was ever charged. The case is technically still open. I sold the property within 60 days. I sold it for considerably less than it was worth, just to be done with it. I have not gone back to St. Francisville since then, and I have not gone back to Louisiana again.